Good evening. How are you doing? Good. Well, you have to bear with me for another hour, and then you can take a break. Well, I've changed the talk tonight, because as you probably know, no one's on the Atkins diet anymore. What diet are they on? South Beach. So that's the one that we're going to focus on for a few moments tonight. Before we get into that, I just want to share another story of a patient that I saw at a lifestyle center similar to this. She came from London, or from England. She had type 2 diabetes, and her hemoglobin A1C was 12.4. Now, every 30 points above 6%, every point above 6%, every percentage point above 6, your blood sugar, average blood sugar goes up about 30 points. So you can see that this individual was having serious problems with her blood sugar. But she, like you, came to a place where they were not teaching South Beach or Atkins, but vegan. No meat, no cheese, no eggs, no fish. And they were using plant carbohydrates that were low glycemic. And again, those are beans, any bean. There's 60 of them that grow in this country. You can eat any one. They're all low. Any one. Grains, any grain but millet is low glycemic. Now, if you grind it into flour, it's going to have a higher blood sugar raising ability. So you're better off to just eat it like the brown rice that we had at lunch. Remember that? That's the best way to eat grains. I can't say that enough. If you're going to eat bread, sprouted bread would be the best. If you just can't tolerate that, then 100% whole wheat. And maybe some nuts or seeds in there will help slow things down as far as sugar is concerned. Pasta would be better off left off. If you're going to eat pasta, make sure it's what? Whole wheat.
What about rice bread?
Rice bread, it's made out of brown rice. It's about the same probably as other breads, whole wheat breads. But again, you're never going to get better than just taking the whole grain, adding water, heating it, and pouring those savory beans over it. That is where it's at. And when it comes to vegetables, where do you stay? Above the ground. You can't eat too many above ground vegetables. If you are trying to reverse diabetes, that is the secret weapon. But don't add what? Oil. You will kill the whole benefit as far as weight loss is concerned, and that's where it's at if you want to reverse diabetes. Significant weight loss, not 5 or 10 pounds. And you can easily lose a pound, half a pound a week. And in 3 years, you are where you need to be. You're off your medicine. Some of you will be off of it in a week. Some of you in 3 weeks. But don't get discouraged if you're not there. It will happen. It's all about depleting those fat reserves in the muscle.
We've got your address. We'll notify you when it doesn't happen.
All right. I'll be happy to talk to you. Well, this lady came to a program such as this, and in 3 months, her hemoglobin A1C dropped to 6. Now you say, well, that's good. But what happened down the road, right? Well, the next check was 5.7. And you can see there's some distance between these. 2002, 2004, 3 months later, 4 months later, 3 months later, 4 months later. It just kept hanging around where? About 6. So she essentially cut her hemoglobin A1C in half, and it essentially stayed there as long as she stayed on the program. And what happened to her can happen to you. It's all about what you put on your plate and what you do with your muscles. And 6 other things I'll be talking to you about, but those are big. Those are big things. I want to share another example. For those of you who want to hit this with all you've got, you want to see the biggest bang for your buck. That's what this gentleman did. Total vegetarian diet. Low fat. Potato chips are vegan, remember. But they're not low fat. Licorice and candies by the score are vegan, but they're not low glycemic. You'll see no fat, low fat cookies, but what do they have instead to tantalize your taste? Sugar. And sugar, refined sugar, goes into your body and it is turned into what? Fat. So you do it for the industry. It creates the same effect. You fill up those storage areas, your weight goes up, and diabetes is going nowhere. This gentleman went on a total vegetarian diet and he began walking. Now, some of you can walk more than others. We're certainly not recommending that you overdo it. If you haven't been doing any walking, you want to be careful. You know, listen to your heart. Listen to your joints. If it's complaining, back off. But gradually increase your walking. And this gentleman was reasonably healthy and he did some serious walking, several miles a day. And he did that other powerful tool for weight loss. What's that?
Drinking water?
No supper.
No supper? No supper?
You'll sleep better than you ever have. You can take that Nexium and you can what? You can kick it over the goalpost. Why are we using Nexium and omeprazole, the purple pill? Why are we using these? Because we're eating big suppers before we lay down to go to sleep. And we reflux all night long. And we eat between meals. You eliminate food between meals, light supper or no supper, and you don't need Nexium. But you will sleep better than you ever have before. Anyway, this gentleman decided to do that. And at the end of 3 weeks, 18 days actually, some things happened. Now his fasting blood sugar, he had diabetes, as you can see. This was a fasting sugar of, what was it? 175. What do you think about that? Anybody want that sugar? And in 18 days, it was 104.
Was he taking any medicine?
No medicine. Now that's not perfect, but that's well below 120. And currently, the normal blood sugar is 99 or less. So he's what? Pretty close. His fasting insulin was 7. It dropped to 3. Now, your lab will tell you that if you're like 15, you're normal. Is 15 normal?
No.
If this guy can get to 3, it's not normal. 5 or less is a normal fasting insulin. His fructosamine, now this is a measure of blood sugar over a 2-week period. Hemoglobin A1C is 2 or 3 months. Drops significantly. So his average sugar was lower, not just fasting. His weight, 289 when he came in. 262 the end of 3 weeks. Lost 27 pounds in 18 days. His body mass index started out at 38. 30 is the cutoff for obesity. Dropped 4 points. That's a huge improvement in 18 days. Triglycerides, 349 when he came in. 93 when he walked out. Normal is less than 100. Now your lab will tell you less than 150. But if you want optimal fat levels in the blood, it's less than 100. Total cholesterol, 191 when he came in. That would be considered what in America? Normal. Normal. 199 is considered normal. Is it normal? Every year in America, 35% of people who get a heart attack have a total cholesterol between 150 and 200. In other words, every year in America, 35% of individuals that have a heart attack have a what? Cholesterol? Normal. Is it normal? No. It's not normal until it's less than what? 150. Because in over 40 years of the Framingham study, not one person had a heart attack if their total cholesterol was less than 150. In 18 days, his cholesterol went from high normal, if we want to say that, to totally normal, 117. That's a China health study cholesterol. His HDL, that's the good one. Started out low in the 30s, should be over 40. Went up 10 points on a high carbohydrate diet.
What do you like to see there?
I'm sorry?
What is ideally you would like
Over 50.
over 50?
Over 50. Exercise, weight loss, and a low glycemic diet will do it. So you don't have to raise triglycerides and lower HDL on a vegan diet. You got to choose your carbohydrates carefully. Any bean, any whole grain except millet, as long as you steam it, cook it. Be careful with breads, not a lot of bread. Be careful with pasta, not a lot of pasta. Best breads are sprouted. Best pastas are whole wheat. I wouldn't eat pasta unless you're going to be active after that meal. Above the ground vegetables, you can eat any of them. Sweet potatoes, yams, not usually a problem. And northern fruits, fresh or frozen. It's really that simple. Make sure you have some nuts at breakfast, olives or avocado at lunch, light supper, steamed vegetables or northern fruits or nothing, and you're walking and you're good to go. It's really that simple. That's all this guy did. LDL. Many of you are on Vytorin. If you go with South Beach, you will continue to be on Vytorin. Or Lipitor, or Crestor. His LDL was 87. That would be considered what? Normal. It was 54 when he walked out of that center 18 days later.
What do you like to see
Less than 80 is where you like to see it. Now, you have been told that if you have diabetes, it should be less than what? 70. And obviously, it's possible to get there. He did in three weeks. But that is a medicine study in a population eating very unhealthy food. And it doesn't translate into a population eating plants, because plants are the only food that have antioxidants. And it's not only about how high is your cholesterol, but it's how damaged is your cholesterol. How oxidized is it? Because that's the form of cholesterol, the damaged form, that goes into the artery and clogs it. And plant foods keep your cholesterol, no matter how high it is, from being oxidized. So even if you don't get your cholesterol down as quickly as you'd like to, if you are on a plant diet and you have color coming into your diet, hand over fist, red carrots, spinach, red apples, blueberries, beans, whole grains, those colors shield your cholesterol from free radicals that your cells are throwing off 24/7 and keep the cholesterol injury-free so it doesn't damage the artery. That is the plant advantage, and it is leagues beyond Vytorin. Vytorin does not shield your cholesterol from oxidation. It simply lowers it. And what they don't tell you is that your body doesn't like Vytorin. It doesn't like to have its cholesterol enzymes blocked. So what does it do? It creates more cholesterol-making machinery. And if you stop that Vytorin for a moment, what happens to your cholesterol? You get a rebound effect and a significant up risk of a heart event. So it's something that you have to stay on. And now you can get off of these medicines, but you have to do it gradually because of this rebound effect. So if you can fight cholesterol with this method, you are way ahead. And the drug companies are way behind. And that's where we need to be. Now, the ratio is the most important number for predicting a future heart attack. This gentleman was right at the heart attack zone, right in the bullseye of the heart attack zone. The average ratio of a gentleman that gets a heart attack in this country is 5.5. And that's where he was when he walked in. When he left, his ratio was 2.7. Now, it should be less than 4. And it's optimal at 3.5. He was less than 3 in just 18 days. Now, he put his whole heart into this program. Vegan diet, low fat, low glycemic, no supper, and walked and drank water. Now, C-reactive protein measures the inflammation in the artery. And the more inflamed the artery, the more at risk you are to rupture the cholesterol plaque, which leads to a blood clot formation of heart attack or stroke. And so you want your inflammation to be rock bottom, and that's what the plant diet will do. And it will do it as well as a drug medicine, and better, actually. He didn't start out that high with his C-reactive protein. It was 1.3, which is considered normal, but it dropped below 1 in just 3 weeks, which is the optimal level for C-reactive protein. Now, what happens when your inflammation level goes down? This is the process that's going on 24/7 in America. When we eat foods that are rich in saturated fat, all of the refined and processed oils, and all of the refined and processed carbohydrates, it creates inflammation in the bloodstream. And it leads to damaged cholesterol. And under that environment, these cells here, this is the lining cell of your artery, the endothelium, they put out chemicals on the surface that reach out and grab the white blood cell and bring him in. And then the white blood cell gobbles up that oxidized, that damaged cholesterol, and he gobbles up enough of it so that he dies, or she dies, and becomes a foam cell, and that is the cell of the atherosclerosis plaque that then can rupture. So when you move to a diet such as you're going to be eating here, this whole process will go away. And your arteries will stop recruiting white blood cells to their surface. And instead, the white blood cells will go on and do what they're supposed to do, protect you from infection, from bacteria, viruses, and fungus. So this is the process that you will be eliminating as your arteries are protected and shielded by the antioxidants, the colors, if you will, in the plant diet. And that's why we recommend not green cabbage, but what? Red. That's why we recommend red apples. Red is a very important color if you're trying to prevent this whole stickiness. Now, just this year, our colleagues, our friends at the Harvard School of Public Health looked at tens of thousands of Americans to see if those who were eating a high-protein, high-fat diet could make a dent in diabetes. And what did they find out? No. No dent. However, those who were eating a diet that was rich in what kind of sources of fat and protein? Plant sources, vegetarian sources of plant protein and fat, they were at lower risk of diabetes. Now, this study doesn't tell you anywhere near what it should or could. Why? Because Americans all eat what? Unhealthily. And so we don't have these broad spectrums. We don't have tens of thousands of vegans who are taking their B12 and their vitamin D to compare with. So we don't really know the whole story. But even with the limited comparison, limited means that we're all eating similarly in this country, you can still pull out the fact that if you want to fight diabetes, you want to get vegetable protein and vegetable fat. That's what fights diabetes. So why is the South Beach diet faulty? Well, in short, it's faulty because it doesn't really change what we're doing. And as a colleague of mine said once, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to what? Keep getting what you're getting. The only thing that I can discover about South Beach is they try to eliminate the oil that your food is fried in. And that's a good thing. But my word, we can do much more than that. If you want to fight disease, chronic disease, heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, you've got to get antioxidants into your diet. That's critical. And they're only found where? In plants. Whole plants. That's where they're at. So South Beach is simply depriving you meal by meal of antioxidants that you could be eating. It just frees you from the grease, which we would certainly agree with. But it's not far enough. It's the same old stuff. Quiche filled with what? This is right from their website. Scrambled Canadian Western, grilled, poached, seared. It's just changing the form of the cooking, but it's the same old stuff. And as we saw earlier, by the way, all those percentages on that earlier lecture, those are the percentages of fat in the animal products before you add any grease. So when you see the turkey and the chicken and the beef, that is just as it comes from the animal, without any added fat in preparation. And it's still 20, 30, 40% fat. You will not be able to deplete your storage areas of fat with those foods. It won't happen. Or you have to eat next to nothing. Crab, broiled lamb chops, roasted chicken, vegetables. To their credit, they do encourage vegetables. Snacks. So that means what's going to happen to your slacks? It's going to go up. It's just mathematics. Cheesecake, turkey, mixed nuts. This is right off their website. Those are the foods that are causing the diabetes epidemic. Yes, oil is also adding to the problem, no question. But just getting rid of the oil, the frying, isn't going to do it. It's not going to do it. Meats are 59% fat on average. That's without any added fat in preparation. 22% of that is what? Saturated, that fights your what? Insulin. Any brain food here? Nil to none. And protein, way too much, 40%. Protein pushes insulin up. Protein is a major push on your pancreas. It's not just carbohydrate. Cheese, 66% fat, 42% of it is saturated. There's no food in cheese telling your brain to raise the basal metabolism. It's not there. And 29% of it is protein, way too much. And so this is the reason you want to avoid the South Beach diet, because you cannot get your total cholesterol below 150 on the South Beach diet. It won't happen. It won't happen. And if you don't get it below 150, this will happen. You'll be moving in this direction. And yeah.
Just going to mention, it's marketing and the money trail. Is what's, you know, they're promoting something that they're making a lot of money on.
Now I want to just point something out here. Your arteries are very smart. They have been designed with great intelligence, which means they must have had to have a what? A designer. When we fill our artery wall with what? Cholesterol, the artery is able to keep the blood flow area constant, despite huge amounts of cholesterol filling the artery wall, which means you can go in for an angiogram, and they can put dye in your coronary arteries, and they can put dye in this coronary artery, and that coronary artery will look what? Normal. And you will be told that your arteries are what? Clear or clean. And they're what? They're not. The only way that you can truly know if you are clean or clear is to do an intravascular ultrasound, which puts an ultrasound tip on that catheter, and it looks all the way across the wall, not just at the blood flow space. And they know now that if individuals are insulin resistant or have diabetes, they are very likely to have major plaque in their coronaries, and the coronary width where the blood flows is completely normal. And yet this is the young lesion that is more likely to rupture and break into a blood clot than this one over here, which the angiogram does pick up. This is an old lesion, and it is actually a safer lesion because it's older and the body's had time to put some fibers in there and calcium. So this program that you are adopting is absolutely critical to shrinking this plaque. It's the only program that's been shown to shrink plaque significantly.
It can be reversed.
Absolutely. It's like chemistry. You have A plus B goes to what? And if you remember your chemistry, if you remove A or B, the reaction goes what? It goes backwards. What's causing the plaque? Foods that have saturated fat and cholesterol. And those are meat, milk, eggs, cheese. South Beach.
So what happens to it?
I'm sorry.
Where does the cholesterol that's in the arteries go? It can really be, is it dangerous because it's coming apart, or
It's dangerous because it can rupture.
what about when you're getting rid of it?
The way you get rid of it is to exercise, to eat a plant-based diet that's low glycemic, and to lose weight. And your HDL will come up. And as your HDL is rising, that tells you that you are removing cholesterol from your coronary arteries. And it goes to the liver, and it's dumped in the small intestine, and it goes out if you're on a fiber-rich diet. Otherwise, it's reabsorbed back into your bloodstream. Now, this is very important information for those of you who are on Vytorin or Lipitor or Crestor. And it is the slide that will tell you that South Beach is not the way to go. Because notice, the only group here that have a total cholesterol below what? 150 is which group? The vegan group. And I could show you study after study, slide after slide. It never changes. This is important information for those who want to avoid a heart attack and a stroke. If you're a lacto-ovo, you're going to be above 150. Excuse me, if you're a lacto. If you're a lacto-ovo, that's eggs as well as milk, you're going to be in the 170s. And if you're an omnivore like the average American, you're going to be right around 200. The average total cholesterol now with all of our statins is 199. Now, if you're looking for LDL, help with LDL, there's only one group that gets you to the current standard of care for diabetes, less than 70. Which group? Average American, this is about where you see it, 123. Triglycerides. You want to be at the lowest triglyceride level, nothing but plants. Just the average is going to be around 150, very common. Now this is the important slide when it comes to a plant diet and whether it can compete with South Beach. If we were all this active, then you could eat any plant food that you wanted to. You could eat all the white potatoes that you wanted. You could eat all the pasta, whole wheat or white, that you wanted to. You could eat all the licorice that you wanted to eat. These people are eating pure sugar. and they're not getting diabetes. But if you're not this active, then you have to be selective about which plants that you eat. And you know this. We've already talked about it. It's not new information, but it's important information. We need to consider not only the properties of the food, but what? Its adaptation to the eater. Often food can be eaten what? Freely by persons engaged in what? Physical labor, but those must be avoided by those whose work is chiefly what? Mental. So if you're like me and you spend all afternoon in front of a computer, you have to be careful about which plants you choose. I'm going to show you some data from a group of people who didn't follow that advice. They knew that a plant diet was the way to go. But they didn't get the information that because they were not hummingbirds in their activity, that they needed to be selective. They needed to be low glycemic, if you will. They needed to choose plants that don't raise the blood sugar aggressively. So they ate all the pasta and all the white potatoes and all the white rice and breads with abandon. Now they were eating a lot of other good things. It wasn't a bad diet. But they did not understand that not all plants are created equal. And white potatoes are created for the farmer who didn't have a tractor and walked behind his team. You know, it's just relatively recently, in the last 100 years, that we have been driving tractors. For thousands of years, we've been walking in the fields. We've been using muscles. And those people need sugar right now, and white potatoes are the perfect food. Very high in antioxidant, very immediate in sugar delivery. And when you have big muscles moving, you need sugar now. But when you're sitting in front of Microsoft, you've got to change the plants that you eat. It's that simple. So these individuals started out with a total cholesterol of a good average American, right at 200. And after about 2 months, I believe, it dropped. It really didn't drop, did it? No. The LDL, the one that we're all concerned about, started out at 124. Is that where you want it? No. Less than 100 is where we're supposed to have it, and less than 80 is really where you want it. Did it drop? No. You think these people were happy? They weren't happy. Their blood sugar dropped a little bit, not too much. Their HDL, what do you think happened to that? When you're eating lots of bread and pasta and potatoes, what happens to your HDL? It goes down. Is that what you want? You want the HDL to go up. It's very important. The triglycerides went up. And the ratio, what do you think? Went up. If your good cholesterol is dropping, your total cholesterol is staying the same, your ratio is going to go up. This is the best predictor of a heart attack. Should be less than 4. Now, what we need to understand in this country is that 2 out of 3 Americans are carrying excess what? Excess weight. Almost 70% of us. So we have got to choose something special when it comes to a plant diet with all of those antioxidants that we desperately need. We have to be selective. We're not the farmer behind the plow anymore. We're the guy in the tractor sitting there with headphones listening to music. It's different. 33% are of normal weight. But frankly, they're sedentary as well. And I can tell you, when I have a meal of pasta or white potatoes, 2 or 3 hours later, I can hardly stay awake. Have you had that? You want to get rid of it? This principle is critical. 1 out of 4 Americans has the insulin resistance syndrome. That's prediabetes. And nearly half, if you're 60 or older, have insulin resistance syndrome or prediabetes. Your friends who don't have diabetes, but they have prediabetes if they're carrying extra weight. Now this is an important slide. If you eat kidney beans, that's what will happen to your sugar. We'll go up to about 90 and it'll start coming back down. Eat new potatoes, go up to 144 before it comes back down. That's what we're talking about. And yet we have eliminated, we have destroyed the only dietary that has the antioxidants to prevent the chronic diseases by throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We've looked at the new potato and we've said, get rid of those carbohydrates. No. Get rid of the ones that have that effect. But there's a world left over. There's very few you have to get rid of. And you can even use those if you're going to be very active after that meal. So at another program where they are aware of this issue, and they steer their patients past the white potatoes to the sweet potato, past the pasta to the brown rice that's been steamed, past the desserts to the apples, pears, peaches, plums, apricots, cherries, and berries, fresh or frozen, and past lots of bread, or perhaps to sprouted breads. And where they're exercising, you can see that the total cholesterol does what? It drops significantly. Now these are people on a statin like Lipitor. And those who are not on Lipitor or Vytorin went from almost average American down to the 150s in 18 days. So you choose the right plants, the low glycemic plants, everything will happen that you want to happen, and you'll have all the antioxidants to protect you. This is the secret. This is why you came to this program. Your LDL, those people taking statins, dropped at 20 points. Those not taking statins dropped it almost 30 points. And the HDL did what? Did not go down. It did not go down. There is no significant difference between those two values. Those who were not using statins, also, no significant difference in HDL. Stayed the same. That's what you want. Now you've probably heard, you go on those high carbohydrate diets, your HDL drops, your triglycerides go up. No, it doesn't have to be that way. You just eliminate or use judiciously the high glycemic plant foods. If you're going to run a 5K, then you have your potatoes. But if you're going to be sitting all morning, don't. It's that simple. Fructosamine, that's a measure of blood sugar over a 2-week period. Before the program, 300 drops significantly, highly statistically significant difference. Blood sugar does come down. That's the average sugar over a 2-week period. So, is it a bad food? No. It's a good food. It was made for a particular type of activity, the hummingbird activity. If you're there, eat all the potatoes you can. If you're not there, then, and sometimes that may be the only thing that's available. Let's face it, you're out to eat. So what do? Well, you find ways to lower the glycemic index of the potato. You put olives, you split it open, you put olives in there. You put salsa in there. Put lemon juice or whatever. There's ways to lower the glycemic index of the potato. But look for the baked sweet potato. A lot of these places have it. It's not like they're going to have brown rice, but actually more and more Asian restaurants are carrying it. So ask for it at your Thai restaurant or your Chinese restaurant. If you eat there often enough, keep asking them. Tell them, hey, I eat here all the time. Can you start serving some brown rice? High glycemic. So be very careful. This is a food to use very judiciously. This is better. Why? It has more soluble fiber, which holds the sugar back so it's absorbed slowly into the bloodstream. And is a much lower blood sugar raising food. This is a killer to your blood sugar. It is very, very high glycemic. And it's also very low in what? Nutrients. There's no reason to use this food. I know it's a strong statement. This is significantly better, much better, worlds better. I can eat brown rice. I don't have diabetes, but I'm sedentary. And I don't have a lot of time, and I don't work out in a gym, so I don't have big muscles, as you've probably noticed. So I can eat white rice and go, have trouble staying awake an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours later. I can eat this, so I'm blue in the face. I never have that problem. So if you have diabetes, it's going to be even more important to do that trick. Low glycemic. Go where the color is. Now this bread has too much what? Too much white. It's high glycemic. This would be a whole lot better. Sprouted whole wheat bread. There's Ezekiel, there's Alvarado Street. It's like skim milk when you first tried it, May not be your favorite thing, but 4 weeks later, if you drank whole milk, what would you say? Yuck, right? Same thing with bread. Get used to it. After a month, it's no sweat. Right. So look for the foods that are going to help you. There are friendly foods out there. Watch for them. Here's another one. Killer. Now you will hear a lot of people say, well, pasta is low glycemic. No, it's not. You can read the numbers. They're over 100 or close to 100. It's high glycemic. Now it does help to eat whole wheat pasta. But I have found in my patients that when they eat any kind of pasta, their blood sugar is much harder to control. So if you eat it, choose it for a high activity to follow the meal. That's the time. But this is certainly going to be better, the whole wheat. Again, go where the color is. Go to a health food store and find the bulk section. You'll be able to find those 15 whole grains. Get a pound of each. Throw them in your pressure cooker or in your crock pot or in your pan and steam them up just like you would brown rice. And pour beans, savory, soupy beans that you've thrown in those herbs, garlic and onion and tomato into. Beans poured over brown rice is the answer to the diabetes dilemma. And vegetables, above ground vegetables, till you're blue in the face. It's that simple. There are 60 different beans, there's 15 different grains. You do the math, the variety potential there is astronomical. Crackers. Man, we had people eating crackers, whole grain crackers, didn't matter. Blood sugar through the roof. Be careful with crackers. They're high glycemic. Beans are so beneficial, so blood sugar absorbing, and so low in their blood sugar raising potential, you can have them at breakfast, lunch. Very, very important. Very, very important. I can't say it enough. Beans have more antioxidants than any other vegetable on planet Earth. And that's where it's at. Antioxidants. Get rid of those free radicals that are pouring out of your cell. When you have diabetes, your blood sugar is, your cells are smothered in blood sugar. And the sugars are running through those biochemical pathways too fast because of the high sugar levels, and free radicals, those highly reactive oxygen and nitrogen species, are flying off at a much higher rate than in anyone else. And that's why we have diabetes complications, the blindness, the kidney failure, the neuropathy, and the heart disease. So you want to choose the foods that have more antioxidant power than any other. Above any group, you need that trick and that secret the most. And beans are at the top of your list. More antioxidants there than in any other plant. Greens, greens are absolute perfect because they're loaded with antioxidants. Blueberries and other berries, more antioxidants in berries than any other fruits. Apples are second. Red apple is king, but peel them unless you buy organic. Beans are low glycemic. I cannot say enough about them. As far as the gas is concerned, avoid canned beans. They seem to be more gas promoting. Soak them in water and pour off that water. Overnight, soak them overnight, pour off that water. There's some lesser known sugars that may be causing some of this gas. The big issue with gas is that food is not moving through the colon fast enough because we're not drinking enough water. If you increase your water and increase your walking, things will move through the colon where the gas-forming bacteria live faster. There'll be less time for those bacteria to work on what's in there, and you'll have less of a gas issue. Chew your food thoroughly, because anything that doesn't get processed properly and absorbed in the small intestine will get to the large intestine, where the gas formers live. So you have to spend more time with carbohydrate-rich foods, more time in the mouth, that is. You can do 50% of the digestion of carbohydrates in your mouth. Half of it can be completely processed before your pancreas ever sees it. But you got to chew how? Thoroughly, slowly. Tropical fruits, again, are made for people who are hummingbird in their activity. They're high glycemic. It's not the fruits that are bad. There are categories that are made for active people. You know, if you're out swimming or out jogging, you need energy right now. And beans, you know, don't deliver as quickly as pineapple under those circumstances. Similar. Tropical fruits and melons are higher glycemic. You want to stay in Washington and Oregon. That's where the diabetes fruits live. And do them fresh or frozen, not juiced, canned, pureed, or cooked, I should say. Artichokes are powerful, high antioxidant. The more the better. Absolutely. Blueberries, I would recommend a cup of blueberries every day. Every day.
Fresh, frozen.
Either way, fresh or frozen. You can get them at Costco. 3-pound bags of blueberries or three-berry mix. No sugar added. Put them on your cereal every morning. The dried are fine if they didn't add sugar. You know, I had a handful of dried cranberries, sweetened. Threw them on my cereal. 2 or 3 hours later, I could not stay awake. I don't have diabetes. Can you imagine what would happen if I did? Cane juice, corn syrup, sugar is not your friend. It will stress your pancreas. You won't be able to keep your sugar under control. I had a patient came into my office who was eating these sweetened cranberries on his cereal. His sugar was not in good control. We just had to do some fine tuning. Grapes are higher. Be careful with grapes. Blueberries are much better. Other berries are better. They have all the color you need. I can't say enough about greens. But again, don't add any what? Oil. It will destroy their fat-removing ability. And I wouldn't use vinegar either. Vinegar is toxic. It's erosive to your, wherever it touches. Vinegar is not designed to be in the body. It is corrosive. Lemon juice is where it's at. Lime juice.
Lime juice is also bad.
No, not bad. Lemon and lime juice are good. They will help lower the glycemic index of your meal. So squeeze all the lemon and lime juice you can. Vinegar will do the same thing, but it's corrosive. If you don't believe it, put it on a baby's skin. Take a tablespoon and swallow it. A lady did that. It was trying to get rid of a fish bone out of her esophagus and had 2nd and 3rd degree burns of her esophagus. It is not human food. What kind of cabbage? Red. What's the principle? Color. The deeper, the darker, the lower your risk of diabetes complications. It's that simple. When you go to the line, zero in on the deepest, darkest color and put more of that on your plate than anyone else in the restaurant. That's where it's at.
How about beets?
Beets are a good food. but they're not as good as red cabbage.
And high in sugar.
There is nothing wrong with beets, and they are better than white and red potatoes. But they're not as good as red cabbage. Why? Because red cabbage has a glycemic index of what? 0. Apples. I can't say enough about them. It's not 1 a day, it's 2 a day. Flaxseed, don't leave home without it. Grind it.
When you're talking about you know, if you don't have organic apples, you should peel them. But is it inside of a red apple?
No, actually not. There's more antioxidant power inside of a red apple.
Do the varieties vary?
The varieties do vary, but don't worry about it. Well, if you want the essential fats that are in there, then you need to grind it. Because they won't, the digestive process will not extract those. The shell is too tough. Yes, you can. If you're going to do that, keep it in the freezer or at least in the fridge. It's a highly unstable fat. It will react with oxygen very easily and be damaged in the process. Tablespoon. 2 tablespoons is too much. Tablespoon a day.
What about omega-3?
Omega-3, that's the flaxseed, that's the English walnuts, that's the greens. So in summary, ask yourself the question, am I going to be doing hummingbird activity today? And if not, then you know what plant foods to avoid. And you will nail South Beach, Atkins, you name it. Any other diet that comes up, and they'll keep coming up, just a moderation of the same old stuff.